In the late 90s, George Clooney was a rising star. Having already appeared in a few hits, Clooney was growing into the classic leading man, a smooth talker, a charmer, a character whose witty demeanor is rivaled only by his conventional good looks. But for Joel and Ethan Coen, they saw an opportunity to flip Hollywood royalty on its head. They decided to take all of the traits that made Clooney such a marketable actor and use them in service of a character who mocks the very reputation Clooney had built over the years.
I don't want this pomade. I want Dapper Dan.
I don't carry Dapper Dan, I carry Fop.
Well, I don't want Fop, goddammit. I'm a Dapper Dan man.
There are a lot of moving parts that go into the Coen brothers' films, but casting against type has proven to be one of their strengths, particularly in their comedies. Brad Pitt, Jeff Bridges, Tom Hanks, and many other notable faces have all been featured against type in Coen films. Although, George Clooney is the one who keeps coming back for more, affectionately referring to Oh Brother Where Art Thou, Intolerable Cruelty, and Burn After Reading as the trilogy of idiots before adding Hail Caesar to his repertoire in 2016. Clooney's roles are elevated by the Coens' directing style, the stories they choose to explore, and the notion of metacinema. So there's maybe no other actor-director relationship better to examine than the Coen brothers and George Clooney when trying to understand why casting against type can be so effective. The Coens' filmmaking style has been analyzed to death, but one component that makes casting against type work so well for them is their love of subversion. That isn't to say subverting expectations is great in and of itself, but it's effective for the Coens because it fits within the themes they tend to explore. The Coens' films are often character-driven to the point where they receive seemingly equal parts criticism and praise for appearing plotless on the surface, such as Inside Llewyn Davis. Everything happens as a reaction to a character's decisions. Other times, the Coens toy with the idea of outside forces pushing characters into unique situations and then letting the story play out, which is seen in The Big Lebowski, or in a more cosmic sense, A Serious Man.
The rabbi is busy.
He didn't look busy.
He's thinking.
So because the Coens set up such flexible stories with multiple branches to follow, not much exists in service to the plot. Anything can happen to anyone, and no characters are safe. Just look at Brad Pitt's affable gym rat in Burn After Reading. However, the idea that anything can happen isn't just about death. It's also a feature of the Coens' iconoclastic tendencies. Oftentimes, the Coen brothers are remarking that appearances can be deceiving, and that idealism can be easily deconstructed. This is the contextual framework where George Clooney's characters are created. The idea of exploring incongruities or contradictions meshes well with a philosophical understanding of comedy. Ancient philosophers, such as Plato, held the view that laughter comes from a place of scorn, a theory that prevailed through the 17th century with the support of notable minds such as Thomas Hobbes and René Descartes. This view essentially argued that we laugh because we feel superior to those whom we laugh at, which holds true to an extent considering the popularity of slapstick comedies. However, through the 18th and 19th centuries, philosophers such as Søren Kierkegaard and Immanuel Kant spoke of the incongruity theory, the idea that humor is derived from situations that defy common expectations, and that tragedy and comedy are only separated by either the presence or absence of suffering. The Coen brothers employ these ideas through their work, with even the darker moments of their comedies being supplanted by stylistic choices which downplay the serious tones. The Coens' exploration of incongruities is particularly evident with how they write George Clooney's characters. As a Dapper Dan man in Oh Brother, he fails to realize the bloodhounds are tracking the scent of his signature pomade. In Burn After Reading, his charming facade and high rank cover for his misuse of big words and increasing paranoia. In Intolerable Cruelty, his confidence leads to his downfall as he gets entangled with a client's wife. And in Hail Caesar, his character's status as one of Hollywood's elite requires that powerful people in the industry must babysit him to prevent the world from finding out that he is actually a gullible dimwit. Each of these roles seem to poke fun at a signature feature of George Clooney that many moviegoers have come to be familiar with. As such, all of these characters were written specifically with Clooney in mind, and at first that might not sound like a compliment.
Bobby, do you want to end up like George Clooney?
No.
But the truth is, Clooney enjoys these roles, and the Coen brothers see his comedic skill and timing as one of his most overlooked attributes. The jabs in each film are not necessarily directed at Clooney, but are aimed toward iconolatry, idealism, and all the moral failings that come with the territory.
If we had, but faith. Oh, damn.
Although style and story are probably the most important components in making the Coen and Clooney working relationship effective, there is another factor that almost entirely relies on the audience for their casting choices to work. That is the idea of metacinema, derived from metafiction, which is essentially a work that is self-referential. Before cinema, metafiction was mostly associated with literature and the arts as far back as Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. At its most obvious, metacinema is breaking the fourth wall, like Deadpool, Wayne's World, or Ferris Bueller's Day Off. But it can also be a film that references its own production within the film, such as Shadow of the Vampire, a fictionalized tall tale about the making of Nosferatu. On a lighter note, there is also Tropic Thunder, where metacinema is manifested as satire of Hollywood tropes. Or it could also be on the dramatic side, like Birdman, where Michael Keaton's character parallels his real life as an actor who was famous for playing a superhero. Probably the most obvious examples from the Coens are the notoriously genre-defying Barton Fink and Hail Caesar, both of which are films about films. In its simplest terms, metacinema is self-aware and serves to remind viewers of the novelty of filmmaking. Metacinema finds its way into the work of Joel and Ethan Coen through their iconoclastic nature. They tend to defy common tropes and break away from cinema norms. They create unorthodox heroes, turn charmers into morons, and inject humor into even the most sinister of scenarios. Casting against type reflects this philosophy. George Clooney is an icon. Everyone knows who he is, what character he is likely to play, and what to expect. The Coens' decision to flip the script on one of the most recognizable celebrities in Hollywood speaks volumes to an audience. We can laugh at Clooney being a dimwit in a Coen film because we know of Clooney outside of the film. His reputation precedes him throughout his roles. With an actor that has become an icon, audiences never see just a character. They see a character and the actor. For example, take a look at Christopher Walken's body of work. Of course, he is immensely talented, but there is also a distinct flair to any character he plays. Audiences revel in the quirks that make his performances unique, so fans have come to expect every one of Walken's characters to embody that same spirit. In the case of Joel and Ethan Coen, George Clooney represents the polished Hollywood facade. He is the archetype of what a golden age Hollywood leading man should be, and his characters in Coen Brothers films have become symbolic jabs at the industry with which they share a love-hate relationship. The Coen brothers are famously loyal to the talent they collaborate with in their films. Frances McDormand, John Goodman, Steve Buscemi, John Turturro, Richard Jenkins, Josh Brolin, and Tilda Swinton are just a small sample of the many actors who have been featured in multiple Coen films. Hail Caesar marks George Clooney's fourth time working with the brothers, and the door appears to be open for him to add on to his anthology of idiots as long as the Coens are at the helm. After all, George Clooney is in on the joke. In fact, Clooney was trying to get Hail Caesar made back when Burn After Reading came out. Love him or hate him, George Clooney's willingness to laugh at himself has led to some enjoyable features from the Coens over the years.
What did we learn, Palmer?
I don't know, sir.
I guess we learned not to do it again.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content.